I'm Dr. Vercellotti, and in this video I'm going to summarize the main findings of this paper. It investigated the production of different clause types in speeches given by English language learners who were studying English for academic purposes. This is my summary of Shifting Structural Complexity, the production of clause types in speeches given by English for academic purposes students by Vercellotti and Packer. Generally, we expect language to get more complex with increasing language proficiency. A series of simple sentences in writing or in speech seems repetitive and unsophisticated, whether we're speaking in our first language or in a second language. And certainly, adults are expected to develop complexity, particularly instructed adult learners who are attending college in an English-speaking country. Language classes specifically and explicitly teach different clause types, and the writing and the speech of learners are often assessed for complexity. Let's review some different clause types. First, we have main clauses, which is the standard clause required in any sentence or complete utterance. An example from the data is all around the world they cut plants. You can see that it's just a sentence with a subject and a verb, one verb, cut. Now, a straightforward way to add complexity is to just add another verb phrase with coordination, a coordinating conjunction like and, or, but. So we could say something like, around the world they cut plants and they plant more trees, something like that. An example from the data is a lot of people like him and listen to his singer. Now I want to stress that this research was done on learner data and there are errors, but we can still see that there is a coordinated verb phrase, a lot of people like him, coordinated with listen to his music. So both like him and listen to his music. And the next clause type is adverbial. Adverbial clauses have the same structure as main clauses, but they begin with a subordinate conjunction, such as because, since, whenever, if. If is the subordinate conjunction in the example from the data. If you go there, you have a lot of fun. These types of clauses, like coordination and adverbial, are considered an easy way to add complexity because another section is just added on to the main clause. The fourth type that we're going to talk about, relative clauses, are considered more difficult. We see an example here. The aspect I liked is the winters. I like is the relative clause that is modifying the noun before it. So the relative clauses are more difficult because they're gapped. I like what? The aspect, which is the noun before it, and also they're considered embedded within the sentence, not added on. Moving on to the next clause type, complement taking predicates. These clauses take an entire clause as its predicate. One example from the data is, I think I'm fine. Notice that the speaker could have just said, I'm fine, but the I think was added there. The I think what? The answer is I'm fine. So the whole thing is functioning as a object of the verb think. But interestingly, the I think part is just giving the speaker's stance about the statement. It shows the speaker's judgment or confidence about the statement, where the I'm fine part is the kind of the main idea. The sixth type of clause that was covered in this article are non-finite clauses. The earlier clause types that we reviewed are all finite clauses, where the verb of the clause can be marked with tense and aspect and subject-verb agreement. But English also has non-finite clauses, and English users create them and use them a lot in their writing and speech. An example from the data, I always liked to play with her. Notice that the to play with her is serving as the object of the verb like, and in this case it's an infinitive, to play with her. And non-finite clauses also could be a gerund, like I liked playing with her. So those are the 6 clause types reviewed in the article. The researchers, Vercellotti and Packer, asked what clause types do English language learners produce? They investigated that question using a corpus of speech transcripts from adult learners that was collected over time in an intensive English program in the US. The corpus included 66 learners, both male and female. The students that year included more Arabic speakers, along with Chinese and Korean learners of English. So what would we expect? What clause types are produced most often? Well, main clauses are going to be produced most often because those are required. But the real question is, how do adult instructed learners of English add complexity to their speech? What types of subordinate clauses are added or embedded into those main clauses? Here's a figure from the article of the percentage of each clause type per assignment within the 3 proficiency levels in that intensive English program. There were 2 speeches given at the low intermediate level, 2 speeches given at the high intermediate level, and 2 speeches given at the low advanced level. The low advanced level are students who are about to matriculate into regular college classes in an English-speaking context. And this graph shows the mean percentage of each clause type per speech. As we anticipated, main clauses are clearly the most common clause type, which makes sense, but we also notice that the percentage of the main clause types decrease as the percentage of the other clause types increase over time. So fewer main clauses overall because the learners are adding these other types of clauses. So what clause types? Well, the coordinate clause types here in black are not very frequently used, and there's not a noticeable change over time. Now, adverbial clauses are added early here in the low intermediate level, which makes sense because they're structurally very similar to the main clause and they're explicitly taught in the curriculum, and they are used throughout. Now, relative clauses are at first not frequently produced, but then they are produced with higher frequency, but the percentage of relative clauses still stays relatively low. Now, those complement taking predicates are used here in the gray, but the percentage of them stays relatively low with maybe a little bump here. But there's no clear pattern of increased production with increased proficiency. Non-finite clauses, however, the ones with an infinitive or a gerund with a complement or an adjunct with them, are increasingly produced as proficiency level increases. These results are not generalizable to all English language learners. It is limited to instructed learners, particularly instructed learners at one intensive English program in the US. We would certainly expect different patterns in the speech of adults learning English in a naturalistic context, for sure. The authors, however, suggest that for these learners, the developmental order in free production tasks are adverbial clauses followed by non-finite clauses, and then followed by relative and complement taken clauses, which are produced only at the later stages of proficiency. These results have the following implications for teaching. 1. Teach non-finite clauses early in the curriculum because learners seem to need them. 2. Give more activities in the creation of relative clauses because although relative clauses are taught in the curriculum, the learners seem to still be hesitant to use them in free production data. And 3, offer more instruction on epistemic devices such as complement taken clauses, the I thinks, the I wonders, and epistemic adverbs such as hopefully or obviously, because these types of devices are generally underproduced in the data. Please see the article itself for more information. The article also described the clause types in more depth with additional examples, and the authors discussed the results in relationship to other research about the developmental sequence of clauses for English language learners.